Hi, everybody. So I'm feeling pretty sick right now, so I'm probably going to keep this a little bit short. And I just want to address a few things that have been brought up on Patreon. By the way, if you want to join this challenge, any future challenges, or look back at previous ones, you can join patreon.com/foxforcefitness. And you can get access to everything related to the challenge, including the calendar. And whenever there's future challenges, I'll create a new one. You'll be able to follow along with us or just get an idea of what we do and come up with your own regimen. First of all, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Sorry for my voice. So, I want to talk briefly about a few things that have been brought up as we've been doing this no carb November. We've been doing carnivore refeeds, which can be really challenging. So a couple of people have stated that their hunger level is higher. Hey, Victoria. Um, and so I wanted to address that because that's definitely happened to me as well. So if you've ever gone into carnivore when you're not fasting, you'll know that, well, carnivore or keto, but especially carnivore, what you'll notice is that at first you get really, really hungry. And then, hey, Jimmy. And then what happens after a few days of that is that your hunger goes away and it's just like super rock bottom low. So what's happening, to put it in, layman's terms, hey, Faye, is that your body is basically like just clamoring after glucose. Okay. You're like a glucose burning machine. And when you switch to pure carnivore, your body's like, oh my God, where's the sugar? There's just none. And it's telling you, like, eat more, eat more, eat more, try to get sugar. And when you don't give it any, eventually it gives up and you go into ketosis and you stop being hungry. That it's a little more complicated than that, but that's what it will feel like. Is it's just like your body is craving anything. So what you can do during this time, usually when you're just going into carnivore and you're not fasting, is just eat more meat. And this will help keep you from binging, going back to carbs. And then after some days of that, you'll feel better or your hunger will subside. And you'll notice that you're probably less hungry than you've ever been in your life. And when I first went carnivore in 2010, this is what I found, that I was like really hungry for a few days, and then my hunger just plummeted, and I felt free of hunger and food compulsion for the first time in my entire life. And at that time, I was like 30, so that was 31, so that was like meaningful, right? Like that was like wow. So and sorry about my eyes. I know they're puffy. Like I said, I'm sick. So Faye, that's really great. Faye says her hunger has dropped by a lot. So comment and let me know if you found that it was higher at first. You may have a different experience because you were already fasting, I think. So we did our October challenge where we just fasted for 72 hours, and the instructions were typical, like keep your refeed carbs low because that's going to make it easier for you to keep fasting. But in the no carb November, what we're trying to do is carnivore refeeds and just see, it's an experiment, right? To see how it affects our hunger, because a lot of people were really struggling with hunger in October doing the 10 back-to-back 72s. And so I thought, hey, okay, let's see about carnivore refeeds, because we know that carnivore can really control that hunger by keeping your insulin super, super low. So we're just seeing what it's like and looking at our experience and deciding, is it worth it to do this? So I think a lot of people are going to find that it is, especially people who struggled big time with with cravings and hunger on 72s. Megan says, hey, almost at my goal weight. Just wanted to know how to maintain your weight loss after doing rolling 72s for so long. So there's a few things to talk about here. One is that it's going to look different for everybody. And two is that I really think that for most of us, we're not so much over fat as we are under muscled. And so I think it's a good idea to consider doing some bulking cutting cycles to build muscle. And that's going to also, it's going to change your body composition for the better. It's going to naturally enable you to burn more at rest, to more efficiently burn glucose, to more efficiently control your sugar insulin balance naturally, and to look as good as you want to look. So, so I think that rather than just think about, okay, I want to hit a certain number on the scale and then I want to try to maintain that, I think you should be thinking about is body composition and trying to increase your muscle to fat ratio. And so instead of just saying like, okay, I weigh 160 pounds and I want to stay here, I think you should go into muscle building mode for a while and then cut a bit for a while and then alternate that, because I don't think that hitting a number on a scale is really what we should be after here. I definitely chased that for a long time and I hit it. I hit below it and then I still wasn't really happy with what I saw. Um, and even just gaining muscle, you know, even now I'm above my original goal weight, but I look in the mirror and it's like I actually have definition in places that, you know, it's something that you can't achieve with just weight loss. You can lose all of the fat that you want to lose, but if you don't have any muscle, that's going to affect you negatively in so many ways, health wise. It's also going to keep you from looking how you want to look. So I'd say instead of just thinking about maintaining your weight, think about building muscle and getting under a barbell. Victoria says that carnivore was a game changer. That's awesome. I hope that more people find that. You know, there's a lot of people who get really wrapped around the axle about some certain food ideology. And I don't think that's very healthy, because we are complex creatures and our needs vary person to person, but they also vary depending on what our goal is at the time and what's happening. Like I was just talking about muscle. If you weigh, 250 pounds, then obviously your goal is going to be to get fat off. But then after you do that, your goal should be to build muscle so that you don't have to worry about keeping fat off for the rest of your life, so that your body is able to efficiently do that on its own without you having to constantly struggle. Because that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to get off the roller coaster of constantly having to think about fat and how much we weigh. And the way that you do that is that you become a really efficient fat burning machine by increasing your muscle. And that way that your body will, insulin resistance begins in the skeletal muscle. I don't think a lot of people realize that. um, and when you pay attention to muscle, then you're just, without even having to think about fat, you're going to have less of a problem with it. And also, I talk about this a lot, but the law of diminishing returns, you can't just keep fasting forever. You can't. Your body's going to adapt to it in a bad way. And you're also going to get to the point where you don't have enough muscle in your body to efficiently burn fat. And that is what I ran into. And also, it's going to make your metabolism plummet. It's going to disrupt your thyroid function. It's going to do all kinds of things to you if you just fast. That's not what I'm advocating here. I'm advocating to everything there's a season. If you are very obese or you have a lot of weight to lose, then it's okay to fast for a while, but you have to balance that with muscle. So don't just think about this as like, oh, I'm going to fast, and then maintain with some kind of fasting regimen. You have to build muscle. Now, assuming that you are, hang on, I'll answer you in a second, Bronco. Assuming that you are lifting, can you continue to fast to some extent? Probably. You could probably do OMAD or intermittent fasting, but you can't be a servant of two masters. If you decide that you are going to build muscle, then just be in muscle building mode and do that. So brown cow, have you noticed thicker or thinner hair during after fasting or no change? So most of you who have been around my channel for a long time know that this is a wig. My hair loss started when I was 13 due to androgenic alopecia. So by the time I was in my early 20s, my hair loss was extremely significant. And by the time I started fasting, it was very bad. I started wearing a wig when I was about 42. My hair loss, your hair loss will get worse if you have, okay, if you don't really ever have a problem with hair loss, you probably, or maybe won't experience any while fasting. If you're already prone to hair loss, that it will increase when you're doing prolonged fasting, like 72s. Mine did. But for most people, it grows back. Like my hair loss got extreme when I was doing 72s, but then that grew back. So I do notice that when I'm fasting, my hair gets thinner. So I don't have alopecia areata, or the kind where I'm completely bald. My hair loss is more like dispersed, and my biggest problem is that my hair, due to the alopecia, gets to a certain point about chin length and then won't grow. Excuse me, or more specifically, it breaks off. So I like long hair. I always had long hair. And so I decided I wanted to have long hair, and I do that by wearing wigs. Um, so just to reiterate, if you are prone to hair loss, you might notice some while you're fasting longer. If you're not, then you might not, but it will grow back when you're done with your hard fasting window. Because like I keep saying, this what we do here with the like 72-hour challenges or 72-96 or the longer challenges, those are meant to be temporary. So if you were to keep, you rolling 72s is not something that you can do for 6 months without really harming yourself, and we don't recommend that. 40 minutes 5 days a week, the body composition is definitely there. That's awesome, Jimmy. Last night, and that reminds me also, because last night so I was lifting up until July, right before I had surgery, and I haven't gone back to it. And because I had complications after my surgery, which was hysterectomy, that make me scared to lift for a variety of reasons. But I do intend to go back to it when I feel like I've healed completely. But my class at my gym, they all competed in a strength lifting meet yesterday. And every time they have a strength lifting meet, they meet at a local pub afterwards, and they have a drink or two. Usually, thank you, thank you, Keisha. And usually it's like one drink because they're exhausted from the meet. So I met up with them last night, and we hung out for about an hour. So I wanted to talk about alcohol while you're fasting or doing carnivore. So the best the best strategy is just to stay away from it while you're fasting, or eating carnivore for brief period, whatever. If you're, like I said, servant of two masters, if you're trying to, okay, my goal is to lose weight, then alcohol is not going to be your friend. However, for something like this where, I'm seeing my buddies for the first time in 6 months or whatever, like, okay, it's understandable that you want to have a drink. So how do you do that without totally messing yourself up? So number one, it's probably best if you stick to spirits, which is to say, you know, liquor. So like vodka, tequila, that type of thing. Now, contrary to popular belief, there aren't any carbs in those. Even whiskey, which is made from potatoes or grain or whatever, the reason why is because in the distillation process, there's just no carbs left. However, there are calories, and quite a bit of calories. So we weren't really that concerned with that when we're fasting on 72s. What we are concerned with is like carbs and sugar, and beer and wine is going to have a lot of that. Now, should you just take shots of tequila? Probably not. If you're trying to here's the problem. You don't want to really get drunk while you're doing this. And the problem with getting drunk is that alcohol causes, you are welcome, Toby. Alcohol causes disinhibition. We know what that means. Your inhibitions go away. And that can affect you in a wide variety of ways. But one of the ways that we are worried about when we're fasting is disinhibition when it comes to food. You're committed to fasting. You have 2 cocktails, and all of a sudden, the French fries on the table seem like a fine idea. Like, fuck it, right? Like, we know that alcohol feeling. It could apply to so many things. So, last night, I had 2 drinks, but for each of the drinks, I asked them to make it a single tall. So if you know what that means, it's 1 serving of the spirit with whatever mixer. And we'll talk about the mixers in a second. So 1 serving of spirit, but double the mix. So you're having a larger drink with more fluid and less alcohol. And then for each drink that I had a glass of water. So the good news is that you're not going to get drunk. The bad news is you might not even really feel it, which I did not. So be that as it may, I was able to socialize, hang out with my friends, didn't really feel anything. Probably wasted my money, so maybe just don't even bother. But so what kind of mixers can you use? So what I had last night was a Cuba Libre, which is rum and Coke with lime, but I did diet. So it was Diet Pepsi. Oh, the guy was like, that's what I always say when they're like, we don't have Coke, we have Pepsi. Is that okay? Gross. Sure. Like, why does Pepsi exist, you guys? I don't know. Besides wild cherry Pepsi. Like, why? Why? I don't know. Do you love my puffy eyes? I'm pretty sick right now, in case you can't tell. So, a diet soda, which is 0 calorie, or club soda or anything that's zero calories. Sometimes you can do vodka club soda with lime. Is it going to taste good? Not really. um, Joe. Okay. Um, Wait, I want to address this question really quick. Wait, let me finish my thought. ADHD. Let me finish my thought about alcohol. It might just be worth it not to even worry about it while you're fasting. Wouldn't blame you if you didn't. Really want to stay away from beer and wine. And probably just be like, I'm not going to have alcohol for a while because you can't really have that much. And if you do, you're probably going to eat. So, Keisha, how fast will it take for a 268-pound woman to lose 100 pounds? So, Keisha, um, that's an impossible question to answer because so many factors go into it that it would take, like, even if you had like a supercomputer that could look at every single variable, it still couldn't give you an answer because who knows? Who knows? I will tell you that it is reasonable to think that you can lose that amount in 6 months safely. Um, but it totally depends on so many different factors, such as how long are you fasting? What are you eating? What's your hormone profile like? What's your health overall like? What kind of physical activity are you doing? All these different things. So if you're doing 72s with carnivore refeeds, and you're keeping your refeeds to 1 hour, and you do that for 2 months, you can lose, 50 pounds in 2 months. But you're not a robot or machine. And so it's possible that you just won't be able to keep up that pace. I couldn't. I lost, I think, 45 or 50 pounds in 2 months. And that was being almost like a machine back in 2020. I will say that it's easier to do this when you're, at a higher weight as you are now. But I will also say that instead of focusing just on a number or just on a time, uh, you have to think about what do you want in the long run. And so I think getting 100 pounds off quickly, maybe think about getting 50 off quickly, and then spending a month building muscle, maybe 2 or 3 months building muscle, and then going back. Because see, like when you get that fat off and you build up some muscle, you make yourself a more efficient fat burner rather than, oh, I'm just going to fast all the way to 168 pounds. It's going to get harder and harder and harder and harder. Your willpower is going to run out. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to mess up your metabolism. So instead of just, I'm going to fast and just sprint all the way to the finish line, be like, okay, I'm going to get, say I'm going to get down to 100 or 200 pounds. I'm going to get 68 pounds off. And then I'm going to spend 2 or 3 months in muscle building mode. And you can do a lot of recomp during that time. You don't necessarily have to gain a bunch of weight. You can just focus on maintaining your weight. And if you just focus on maintaining your weight while you're lifting heavy, then you'll lose fat because you just will. You'll recomp. So you could do 2 or 3 months under the barbell, and then when you switch back to fasting, the weight will come off like that, and it'll be so much easier, and you'll get better results because you've got more muscle and you're burning more fat. So I suggest maybe thinking of something like that instead of just, oh, I wanna lose 100 pounds as fast as I possibly can. It's very tempting, but take it from somebody who tried to do that. I mean, I did do that, but what happens is at the end, you're gonna really struggle and maybe do yourself damage. And I know, trust me, I know how hard it is, especially for women, to stop and just be like, okay, I'm going to build muscle. And the idea that you might actually see the number on the scale go up. And this is why I encourage you, like, at some point you have to stop just focusing on the number on the scale because there's more to it than that. You can weigh 165 pounds and be, absolutely beautiful and in great shape, and you have a great body composition, and you could be standing next to a woman the same height who was 130 pounds and you look better than her because you have more muscle definition, you're healthier, and also you're probably having a better time and you're healthier. So like it's really not just about that number. You also need to build that muscle and get off this roller coaster. Do we all want to be worrying about fasting for the rest of our lives? I don't think so. No, you're awesome. Thanks for being here. What other issues have popped up? on Patreon lately. We've talked about dealing with hunger and carnivore. We've talked about alcohol. We've talked about, someone asked about hair loss. We've talked about, okay, so let's talk about fasting when you're sick, because I've been dealing with that the past few days. Some people find they get less hungry when they're sick. Some people find they get hungrier. I get hungrier. And I think in the past that I've often thought of it as like, oh, I'm just feeling bad. It makes me feel tiny and weak and I want to eat because it's comforting. But I have really felt very strongly in the past few days, like increased literal physical hunger, like in my gut rumbling. How do you deal with that? I think that you be patient and kind with yourself. Sickness is brief and temporary. One thing I've learned is that when I do mess up, I have to forgive myself, because if I don't and I end up beating myself up, what you end up doing is being like, fuck it. And you self-sabotage, because that feeling of like, screw it, I'm just gonna eat a bag of Cheetos. It doesn't come from a place of self-love and like, yay, I'm taking care of myself. It really does come from a place of like, I don't care. I can't do this anyway. So if you give into that feeling, you're going to make really bad choices. So that's my kid yelling at me, so I should probably cut this off. Oh, one thing I also want to address is the question about refeed bump, like how much should you gain on a refeed? It doesn't matter a ton. So instead of focusing on what does the scale do, if you just kind of keep an eye on, am I eating the right thing? Am I making sure that I don't eat all day? So if you're grazing all day on bad food, you're gonna have a big refeed bump. A lot of that's gonna be water weight. On carnivore, you're gonna notice very quickly if you sort of inflate with fluid, you're gonna get a lot of inflammation and you're gonna feel like bulky and puffy. If you are paying attention to what you put into your body and when and how much, then you don't really need to worry about that bump. In women, it can fluctuate a lot depending on our hormones. But if you just focus on what you eat and when, then you don't really need to notice that number. Sometimes it could be like, oh my God, I ate, I gained 3 pounds on my refeed. But if you did what you should do, then it's just going to go away. It's just going to be a wash. Now, if you eat, an entire bundt cake, then you're going to gain 7 pounds, and a lot of it might be there to stay. So just don't worry too much about the number. Worry instead about what you eat, and the number will take care of itself. And with that, I usually go a little bit longer on these, but I'm feeling like I want to drink something hot and curl up into a ball, so I'm going to do that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you're not part of our Patreon group, you can join us at patreon.com/FoxForceFitness. We are going all the way to December 2nd with this particular challenge, and we are going to have done, those of you who have been with me since the beginning of October, by the time we get to December 2nd, we'll have done 20 back-to-back 72-hour fasts with a brief little, I think, 2-day carnivore reset in the middle. So we'll have really accomplished something by the time we get to December 2. So if you want to join, go ahead and join. I have no idea what's coming up in December. Stay tuned. It'll really depend on how the rest of this goes. But thank you, Jimmy. I do too. I think I'm on the downhill slope of this. Bye, Keisha. Thanks for coming by. There's also lots more discussion and stuff on Patreon. So join at any level, patreon.com/FoxForceFitness, and you can get the calendar and see what we're all talking about on there. Now, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you again for being here. And thank you for everything, for being part of the community. I really appreciate you guys.